My daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eye and sneered. "This house is mine now. Old women need to learn to shut their mouths." She had no clue who she was messing with. 10 minutes later, the color drained from her face so fast you'd think she'd seen a ghost. My story didn't start with a bang, but with a doorbell ringing at exactly 3:37 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in February. I was in the laundry room, or rather, what was left of it, because that was my bedroom now. I was squeezed between the washing machine and a damp wall that never seemed to dry, in a space no bigger than 6 by 9 feet. There was a tiny window that barely let in a sliver of gray Chicago light. The smell of mold clung to my skin like a second layer of clothing, the kind you can't scrub off no matter how hard you try. When I heard Henry's voice in the living room, my heart nearly leaped out of my chest. Henry. I hadn't seen my old friend in 6 months. 6 months since Vanessa had slowly, methodically severed every single tie I had with the outside world. "Ms. Evelyn is too tired for visitors," she would tell my friends at the door. "She's been so confused lately. It's better not to disturb her." I stepped out of the laundry room slowly. My joints were screaming, not just from age, but because that thin, cheap foam mattress was destroying my spine. Me, Evelyn, who for 40 years had slept on a king-size bed with an imported orthopedic mattress, now woke up with aches shooting from my lower back to my neck. When I reached the living room, my living room, which Arthur and I had decorated stone by stone over 4 decades, the scene cut me like glass. Vanessa was sitting in my Victorian armchair, that emerald green velvet chair that belonged to my grandmother, brought over on a ship from Europe in 1932. She sat with her legs crossed, red nails tapping on the armrest, wearing the smirk of someone who owns the world. Henry was standing, looking impeccable in a charcoal gray suit, clutching an Italian leather briefcase. His eyes, those intelligent brown eyes I had known for 40 years, were scanning the room. He saw everything. The stains on the Persian rug that no one cleaned anymore, the wedding portrait of Arthur and me, which used to hang on the main wall, now shoved into a corner, facing backward. The pillows embroidered by my mother's own hand, now rumpled and dirty. And then he saw me. Too thin. The dress I was wearing was old and faded, not because I didn't have others, but because Vanessa had locked my walk-in closet and said nice clothes were a waste on someone who never left the house. My hair, which I had always kept dyed and styled, was gray and messy. I looked 10 years older than I actually was. Evelyn. His voice was low, controlled, but I knew Henry. I saw the rage tightened in the corners of his mouth. "It's good to see you." Before I could respond, Vanessa stood up, 30 years old, a body sculpted by hours at the gym, shiny, straight hair cascading down her back. She was wearing a very expensive dress, bought with my money, I realized later, and she had that air of the lady of the manor that made me feel like an intruder in my own life. "Henry, what a surprise," she said, her voice syrupy sweet and fake. "I didn't know you were in the city." "I got back yesterday from Paris," he replied, eyes fixed on her. "Thought I'd visit my old friend. But tell me, Vanessa," he paused, looking around, "why is Evelyn sleeping in the back room?" The silence that fell over the room was heavy as lead. Kyle, my son, was sitting on the sofa, my sofa, where Arthur and I used to watch movies on Sundays. He lowered his eyes. He didn't defend me. He didn't say a word. He just sank into the cushion like he wanted to disappear. Vanessa, however, smiled. That smile I had learned to hate, a smile that never reached her eyes. "Henry," she said, crossing her arms, "you understand, don't you? The elderly need special care, and that room is more suitable. It's closer to the service bathroom, more practical for her routine." She paused, and then she let slip the words that would be etched in my memory forever. "This house is mine now, and old women? Well, old women need to learn their place and keep their mouths shut." I felt like someone had plunged a knife into my chest, not for the first time. Vanessa had humiliated me in various ways over the last few months, but saying that in front of Henry, in front of a witness from the outside, showed just how safe she felt. Untouchable. What she didn't know was that Henry wasn't just any friend. He was a tax attorney, a founding partner of one of the biggest law firms in Chicago, a man who had dedicated 50 years of his life to dismantling fraud schemes, embezzlement, and financial manipulation. And more importantly, he had been my husband's best friend. Arthur trusted him more than anyone else in the world. Henry didn't change his expression. He just opened his leather briefcase with the surgical calm of someone who has seen the worst of human nature and can no longer be surprised. "I understand perfectly," he said, his voice low, dangerously calm. "Actually, Vanessa, there are a few things we need to discuss. Can I see this back room?" Vanessa hesitated. For a second, just a split second, I saw fear flash in her eyes. But she was good at hiding, good at lying. "Of course," she said, smiling again, "but it's very simple, you know, nothing fancy." Henry looked at me, and in that look, I saw everything. I saw that he knew, that he had come prepared, that the next 10 minutes were going to change everything. Henry hadn't come to visit me by chance. He had come to fulfill a promise he made to my husband 3 years ago, 2 months before Arthur died. And Vanessa? Vanessa was about to discover that she had just declared war on the wrong person. Why do people assume age equals stupidity? It's the perfect cover, really. While they look at your gray hair and assume you're confused, you're watching, cataloging, and remembering every single slight. But before I tell you what Henry had in that briefcase, I need you to understand how it got to this point. How a 68-year-old woman who built an entire life was reduced to a shadow in her own home. Let me tell you how you erase a person, bit by bit. It's not with violence, it's not with screaming. It's with tiny gestures, offhand comments, fake smiles. It's like erosion. You don't see the stone being destroyed, but one day you look, and there's nothing left. When Arthur died 3 years ago, my world collapsed. 42 years of marriage don't just fade away. He had a massive heart attack on a Sunday morning while watering the orchids in the garden. He fell right there, among the flowers he loved so much. I didn't even have time to say goodbye properly. The first few months were a blur of pain. Kyle was wonderful, I have to admit. He slept here at the house 3 times a week. He went grocery shopping with me. He sat next to me on the couch just to keep me company. My son, my only son. I thought I would never lose him. But then Vanessa showed up. They met at a corporate event. Kyle works as a project manager at a tech company. Vanessa was a marketing coordinator. Beautiful, articulate, full of charm. 8 months after the funeral, Kyle introduced me to her at a Sunday brunch. I remember it to this day. She arrived with a bouquet of white lilies. "Because you deserve flowers," she said, smiling. She complimented everything in the house, the decor, the paintings, the china. "Such good taste, Evelyn. This house has history in every corner." I liked her. I swear I liked her. When Kyle told me 3 months later they were getting married, I hugged them both. I gave my blessing. Arthur would have been happy to know our son had found someone. The wedding was beautiful, simple but elegant. Vanessa wore a lace dress that hugged every curve. During the reception, she came up to me and said, "Thank you for welcoming me into the family, Mom. I'm going to take very good care of Kyle." I should have paid attention to the word care, because for Vanessa, caring meant controlling. 2 weeks after the honeymoon, she and Kyle showed up here at the house. "Mom," my son said, sitting next to me, "you shouldn't be alone in this huge house. We were thinking, what if we came to live with you? It would be good for everyone. You'd have company, and we'd save on rent." It seemed reasonable. It seemed like love. It seemed like the perfect solution to the loneliness that was suffocating me. I said yes. That was my mistake. The mistake that would cost me my dignity. At first, it was subtle. Vanessa reorganized the kitchen to be more functional. She swapped out some living room furniture because it was too old. She hung new paintings to modernize. I let her. After all, she was my daughter-in-law. And I was trying to be a good mother-in-law, not one of those controlling matriarchs everyone hates. But then the comments started. Mom, this blouse is a bit outdated, don't you think? How about we update your wardrobe? Oh my, Evelyn, do you still use these heavy pots? I'm going to buy some new non-stick ones. This Persian rug is beautiful, but isn't it time to clean it? It smells a bit musty. Each comment was a pinprick, small, almost imperceptible, but it stung. 3 months after they moved in, I noticed my friends stopped coming by. Martha, my friend of 40 years, called one afternoon asking if I was okay. Evelyn, I tried to visit you twice this week, but Vanessa said you were indisposed. Is everything all right? I wasn't indisposed. I didn't even know Martha had stopped by. I confronted Vanessa. She smiled, calm as a cucumber. Oh, Mom, I'm sorry. It's just that you take so many naps during the day. I thought it was better not to disturb you. Besides, the house is such a mess with the renovations. It's embarrassing to have guests, don't you think? Renovations? I hadn't authorized any renovations. But when I went up to my bedroom, the master suite Arthur and I had shared for decades, I found the door locked. Oh, that! Vanessa appeared behind me, wiping her hands on a towel. We're renovating the bathroom. Leak, you know how it is? In the meantime, you can use the guest room. The guest room was smaller, much smaller. But I agreed. It was temporary, I thought. But temporary turned into a month, then 2, then 3, and my things started to disappear. First, it was my mother's Chinese porcelain, 18 very rare pieces, hand-painted, that she had collected her whole life. They had been in the china cabinet in the dining room for 20 years. One day, the cabinet was empty. Vanessa, where's the porcelain? Oh, Mom, I put it somewhere safe. You know how it is. With the renovation, it might break. I'll bring it back later. She never brought it back. Then it was the sapphire brooch, the one my mother gave me on her deathbed, holding my hand, her eyes already clouding over. Take care of this, Evelyn. It's the only valuable thing I have left. It vanished from my jewelry box. Vanessa, have you seen my brooch? What brooch, Mom? Oh, that blue one? Goodness, no. It must be around somewhere. You've been so forgetful lately. I wasn't forgetful. I have never been forgetful. But Vanessa started planting that seed in everyone's head. Poor Evelyn, she's getting so confused. The other day she asked me the same thing 3 times. I think it's age, you know? Normal. Kyle started looking at me differently, with pity, with that concern you have for someone who is losing their faculties. And the worst part was, he believed her. When the bedroom renovation was finished, because yes, there was a real renovation, $30,000 drained from my account without my authorization, Vanessa told me with a smile, Mom, it looks beautiful. Let me show you. She opened the door to the master suite. My room. The room where I slept with Arthur for decades, where I cried over my husband's death. It was completely different. She had painted the walls charcoal gray, replaced all the furniture. The bed was new, modern, upholstered. The walk-in closet had mirrored doors. The bathroom was remodeled with Carrara marble and gold finishes. It was beautiful. It was expensive. And there was nothing of mine in there. Where are my things? My voice came out trembling. Oh, that old furniture? I donated it, Mom. It was so worn out. But look how wonderful this turned out. She had donated the bed where my husband died, the wardrobe my father gave me as a wedding gift, the Victorian chair that belonged to my grandmother. All of it. Gone. Without my permission. And when I tried to talk to Kyle, he hugged me, paternalistic. Mom, I understand change is hard to accept, but Vanessa only wants what's best. That furniture was old. The house needed modernizing. It wasn't about furniture. It was about memory. It was about respect. It was about who I was. And Mom, he continued, voice low, can you stay in the guest room? It's comfortable there, isn't it? The guest room was becoming too small because 2 weeks later, Vanessa told me they needed that room to set up an office. Kyle was going to work from home sometimes. He needed space. You can stay in the maid's room for now. It's just until we get organized. The maid's room. That hole of 6 by 9 feet next to the laundry room, smelling of mildew, with a window that barely opened. And that's where I ended up, with my clothes in cardboard boxes, with a thin foam mattress, with a bedside lamp that flickered and threatened to burn out at any moment. 6 months. It took only 6 months from the time they moved in until they turned me into a prisoner in my own home. 6 months for me to lose my space, my things, my dignity. 6 months to discover that the sweet daughter-in-law was actually a brilliant manipulator. And the worst was yet to come. Because Vanessa didn't just want my house. She wanted my money, and she had a plan to get it all. Loneliness is a dangerous thing. It makes you open doors you should keep double locked. I let the vampire in, and now I was surprised she was sucking me dry. Have you ever felt invisible inside your own home? I'm not talking about loneliness. I'm talking about being treated like an old piece of furniture that gets in the way, takes up space, that everyone wishes would disappear, but doesn't have the guts to throw out. That's how I felt every day. Vanessa had taken over completely. And when I say completely, I mean it. She changed the locks. All of them. I found out on a Thursday morning when I tried to go out the front door to water the orchids in the garden, the same ones Arthur planted, the last living things left of him in that house. The key didn't fit. I tried again. Nothing. "Vanessa, the lock is stuck," I called out. She appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. My dish towel, the one with the sunflower embroidery my sister made before she died. "Oh, I forgot to tell you, Mom. We changed the locks yesterday. For security, you know. There have been a lot of break-ins in the neighborhood." There were no break-ins. We lived in a gated community in the suburbs with 24-hour security. And my key? Oh, only Kyle and I have keys. It's safer this way. If you need to go out, just let me know and I'll open it for you. I had to ask permission to leave my own house. Let that sink in. But the worst wasn't the locks. The worst was seeing Vanessa using my things as if they were hers, as if she had built that life, as if every object didn't have a history, a memory, a piece of me. The silver service, for example. 128 pieces my grandmother brought from Europe. Every fork, every plate, every platter had a mark, a weight, a soul. I used that silver at my wedding, at my silver anniversary, at my mother's 80th birthday. Vanessa used it to host dinner for her friends. Every Friday she organized dinners. She invited 5 or 6 friends, women her age, full of Botox, manicured nails, designer clothes. They arrived laughing loudly with their expensive bags and their cloying perfumes that took over the whole house. And Vanessa served them on my plates, my crystal, my silver. I stayed locked in the back room. I could hear the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the loud music. It was like I didn't exist, like my presence was an embarrassment that needed to be hidden. Once, I dared to go out. I was thirsty, just wanted a glass of water. I walked down the hall, entered the kitchen. Vanessa's friends were there, seated around the dining table. My table. Solid mahogany that Arthur and I bought at an antique shop 30 years ago. They stopped talking when they saw me. The silence was instant and heavy. "Oh, Mom!" Vanessa stood up, smiling, but her eyes were hard. "Do you need something?" "I just came to get water." Of course. I'll take it to your room. Don't worry. Go back there. You must be tired." She escorted me back like I was a child, or worse, like I was a lunatic who couldn't roam freely. When she returned with a glass of water, I heard her say to her friends, laughing, "Poor thing, age is catching up. She gets a little lost sometimes." They laughed, too. They laughed at me. And that night, while they drank wine from the cellar Arthur had curated for 20 years, bottles that cost $400 each, I stayed in the room, staring at the mold-stained ceiling, tasting the bitter flavor of humiliation. But what really broke me was discovering what she was doing with my money. Arthur had left me well off, very well off. Besides the house, which was worth $1.5 million, he had investments, savings, a generous pension. I received about $6,000 a month. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable, enough to live well, travel, help my son. But the money started disappearing. At first, it was small amounts. Vanessa asked me to sign checks to pay the household bills. Groceries, electricity, water, internet. It made sense. They were living with me. It was fair to share the expenses. I signed without thinking much. $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. But then I started noticing. $4,000 for groceries? There were only 3 of us. Even buying expensive products, it didn't add up to that. I asked to see the receipts. "Oh, Mom, I threw them away by accident, but you can trust me. Everything is correct." Trust. That word was starting to make me nauseous. When I finally managed to access my bank statement, because yes, Vanessa had changed the online banking password, saying it was for my security, I almost fainted. $180,000 in 4 months. Transfers, withdrawals, purchases, all authorized with my signature, or at least what looked like my signature. Furniture store, $30,000. Jewelry store, $18,000. Credit card, which I didn't even know existed, $42,000. Transfers to Vanessa's account, $32,000. My head spun. My stomach churned. I looked for Kyle. He was in the living room on his laptop. "Kyle, we need to talk." He barely looked up. "What is it, Mom?" "Money is missing from my account, a lot of money." Now he looked, but not with concern, with irritation. "Mom, you authorized all those expenses. Vanessa takes care of your finances so you don't have to worry. You've been so forgetful." "I am not forgetful." My voice came out louder than I intended. "Kyle, it's $180,000. I didn't authorize this." "Mom, for the love of God, Vanessa is helping you. If it weren't for her, you'd be lost in this huge house, not knowing how to pay a bill. You should be thanking her instead of inventing these things." Inventing. My own son was calling me a liar. "Kyle, I raised you alone after your father died when you were 10. I worked 40 years as an accountant. I managed companies. I never left a bill unpaid. And now you're telling me I don't know how to take care of my own money?" He sighed, that tired sigh of someone dealing with a stubborn child. "Mom, age comes for everyone. It's no shame, but you need to accept help." He went back to his laptop. The conversation was over for him. For me, something died right there, because I realized Kyle had made a choice, and he hadn't chosen me. That was the moment my heart broke. Not because of the money, but because my son looked at me and saw a burden instead of a mother. He chose the lie because the truth was too inconvenient. That night, sitting on the thin mattress in the back room, I cried. I cried for the first time since Arthur died. I cried for my marriage, for my son, for my house, for my dignity. But amidst the tears, something began to grow inside me. Rage. Not destructive rage, constructive rage. The kind of rage that lights a fire where before there was only ash. Because I wasn't a confused old woman. I wasn't a poor child who needed a guardian. I was Evelyn, 68 years old, retired accountant, a woman who built a life, who raised a son, who survived the death of the love of her life. And if Vanessa thought she was going to destroy me without a fight, she was very, very wrong. Because in the silence of that early morning, I began to devise a plan that would take time, patience, and intelligence, but that in the end would make Vanessa pay for every humiliation, every lie, every stolen dollar. It was on an early morning in February that everything shifted inside me. 3:15 a.m. I know because I looked at the broken digital clock blinking on the cardboard box beside the mattress. I had been awake for hours, staring at the damp spots on the ceiling. Those spots had strange shapes. One looked like a dragon, another a distorted face. I lay there, night after night, cataloging stains like they were constellations in my own private hell. But that night was different, because I realized something. Vanessa had made a mistake. A mistake women like her always make when they feel too powerful, too safe. She underestimated me. Vanessa saw a 68-year-old woman, white hair, trembling hands, living in a miserable little room. She saw a victim, a poor thing, someone who had given up. But she didn't see who I really was. Evelyn Miller, graduated in accounting from the University of Chicago in 1976. 40 years of career in a multinational corporation, rising from assistant to controller. A woman who audited the balance sheets of multi-million-dollar companies, who found hidden fraud in complex spreadsheets, who never, in 4 decades, let a wrong number slip by. Numbers don't lie, and numbers were my mother tongue. I got out of bed slowly, joints popping. The floor was freezing. February in Chicago is unforgiving. I opened the door of the little room carefully, not to make noise. The house was silent. Kyle and Vanessa were sleeping in the master suite on the 2nd floor. My old suite. I went to the kitchen in silent steps. My heart was beating fast, but not from fear, from purpose, from determination. I grabbed the old laptop that still worked. Vanessa had given me a new one, easier to use, but I had kept the old one just for this. She didn't know I knew how to use computers. I let her think I was digitally illiterate. Convenient. I accessed my bank account through the website. The new password, the one Vanessa had changed for my security, I had discovered weeks ago. It was on a sticky note pasted under the keyboard of her computer. Arrogant people are sloppy. And then I started. I opened an Excel spreadsheet, my old friend of 4 decades. I created columns: date, amount, recipient, description, authorization. And I began to transfer every transaction from the last 6 months into that spreadsheet. It took me 3 hours. When I finished, the sun was starting to rise. A pale light entered through the kitchen window, illuminating my masterpiece. $186,400. That was the total amount that had vanished from my account. Not $127,000 as I thought before, $186,000. But the most important thing wasn't the amount, it was the pattern. 12 transfers to Vanessa's account, always in odd amounts to look like miscellaneous expenses. $3,700, $5,900, $2,500, 14 cash checks. And here was the gold mine. Never in my entire life had I signed a check with a slant to the right. My signature always slanted to the left, a characteristic I acquired when I broke my wrist at 30 and had to relearn how to write. But those signatures on the checks, all slanting to the right. Forgery. I photographed every page of the statement with my old cell phone. Vanessa had also given me a new smartphone, more modern, but I kept the old one hidden. I took photos of the cleared checks, the transfers, everything. And then I started looking for something else. In the closet in the mudroom, next to my room, which Vanessa rarely opened because she hated heavy cleaning, I had stored boxes. Boxes with documents she thought I had thrown out. I found the green folder, the one that held the appraisals of the antiques in the house, done when Arthur died. 16 items missing. The sapphire brooch, appraised at $28,000. 3 Chinese vases. The other 15 I hadn't located yet. $13,000 each. A bronze candlestick from the 18th century that used to be in the foyer. $5,800. A Swiss pocket watch that belonged to my grandfather. $18,000. The list went on. Every object, every memory, every piece of my history had been sold, turned into cash for Vanessa to spend on clothes, jewelry, dinners. I photographed everything. I went back to the room before they woke up. I hid everything in a manila envelope under the mattress. And then I took the old phone and did something I hadn't done in 6 months. I called Henry. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice sleepy but alert. "Evelyn?" My voice came out shaky but firm. "Henry, I need you. I need help, but I can't talk now." "Where are you?" "In Paris, client meetings. I'll be back in 15 days. When you get back, come see me, please. And Henry, don't tell them you're coming. Show up as a surprise." There was a pause. Then, "Evelyn, are you okay? Are you in danger?" "I'm not in physical danger, but," my voice cracked, "but I'm being robbed, manipulated, and my son believes her, not me." "I understand." His voice changed. It became hard, professional. The voice of the lawyer who had won hundreds of cases. Do you have proof? I do. Keep it safe. Don't let her find out. Can you hold on for 15 more days? I can. Then hold on, because when I get back, we're going to end this. I promise you. I hung up, and for the first time in months, I smiled. From that day on, I transformed into another person. On the outside, I remained the same, the confused, forgetful old woman living in the back room. I even exaggerated it. I started asking things twice, forgetting names, appearing more frail. Vanessa loved it. She lowered her guard completely. She started being even more careless. She left documents scattered around, spoke on the phone without closing the door, bragged to friends about how easy it was, and I documented everything. I recorded conversations where she mocked me with Kyle. I photographed more statements. I found receipts for the sales of my antiques on specialized websites. I discovered she had opened a credit card in my name with a $50,000 limit. Maxed out. 15 days. That was the time it took for Henry to return from Paris. 15 days that felt like 15 years. But I held on, because I knew revenge served cold is the most delicious kind. And when Henry rang that doorbell, when Vanessa opened the door smiling, unaware of who was really there, her empire of lies was going to crumble. And I was going to be there, front row center, to watch every second of the fall. Instagram, Facebook, social media, wonderful tools that Vanessa mastered like a maestro. I found out by chance on a Tuesday afternoon. She had left her phone in the kitchen while she showered. The screen was unlocked. And there it was, her profile with almost 20,000 followers. Family life is everything, the bio said. I started scrolling through the feed, and my stomach turned. A photo of her hugging me in the garden, smiling. Caption: taking care of my beloved mother-in-law is my greatest joy. Family is everything. Hashtag family love. Hashtag respect elders. Hashtag blessed daughter-in-law. 3,000 likes, hundreds of comments. How beautiful. Lucky mother-in-law. Family goals. God bless you for taking care of her. I remembered that day. I remembered because I had gone hungry. It was Mother's Day, May 12th. Vanessa had prepared a special lunch: roast turkey, stuffing, saffron rice, fancy salads. The smell took over the whole house. My stomach growled all morning, but no one called me to eat. I stayed in the room waiting. 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. I heard laughter coming from the dining room. I heard the clinking of silverware, of glasses. They were eating. Vanessa, Kyle, and 4 more people I didn't know, friends of theirs. At 4 in the afternoon, so hungry I was dizzy, I left the room. I went to the kitchen. The table was being cleared. Vanessa was putting leftovers in containers. "Oh, Mom, sorry. I thought you were sleeping. We called you, but you didn't answer." Lie. No one had called me. I had been awake the whole time, specifically waiting. "Is there any food left?" My voice came out small. I hated having to beg. "Oh, there's just a little bit of stuffing and salad left. But it'll do, right? Let me make you a plate." She served me on a plastic plate, one of those disposable ones used at picnics. 2 spoons of cold stuffing, 3 wilted lettuce leaves, a tiny piece of turkey, more bone than meat. Leftovers. Leftovers bought with my own money, in my own house, on Mother's Day. And 30 minutes later, she posted that photo, the 2 of us, smiling in the garden. She had asked me, "Come on, Mom, let's take a beautiful picture." I went because part of me still wanted to believe there was something there, some shred of humanity. The photo was perfect. Her smile, genuine. Mine, tired but present. No one would see the hunger. No one would know the humiliation. But what really destroyed me was discovering what she was doing with my things. I started searching the internet, antique sites, marketplaces, auctions. I used descriptions of the objects that had disappeared. And I found them. The bronze candlestick, 18th century Portuguese relief work, sold 3 weeks ago for $2,800 on a site called Relics of the Past. The seller? User Ingrid Antiques. She hadn't even bothered to disguise the name. I kept searching. A Chinese vase of my mother's, $3,500. Another one, $3,200. A set of 6 English porcelain teacups my grandmother brought from London in 1940, sold for $5,000. Every object had a photo, some taken right here in my living room. I recognized the wall in the background, the carpet. She was selling my history, piece by piece, turning memories into cash. And worst of all, in the ads, she described everything as family inheritance, rare pieces, valuable antiques. She knew exactly what she was selling. She knew the value. It wasn't ignorance, it was calculated theft. I photographed every ad, saved the links, documented everything in my secret file. But it was on a Thursday that I got the most important piece of the puzzle. Vanessa was in the garden, talking on the phone. The kitchen door was ajar. I was wiping down the counter. Yes, because even living in a tiny room, I was still obligated to help with chores. And I heard, "No, Mom, relax. Everything is under control." Her voice was animated. The old hag doesn't suspect a thing. Completely manipulated. I grabbed my phone, trembling, opened the recorder, pressed the red button. "How much longer?" It was the voice of another woman, probably Vanessa's mother. "Oh, I don't know. She's 68. She could live another 10, 15 years. But it doesn't matter. As soon as she dies, this house is worth over $1.5 million. I already consulted 3 realtors. And she has investments, too. Must have about $400,000 saved up." Silence. Then, "But what about Kyle? Won't he want to sell?" Vanessa laughed, a low, wicked laugh. "Mom, Kyle does whatever I want. He believes everything I say. I already convinced him that his mother has early onset dementia. When she dies, we're going to sell everything, split the money, and finally live our lives, without that annoying old woman nagging me." My hand shook so much I almost dropped the phone, but I kept recording. "And if she finds out something?" "Find out what? She barely knows how to use a cell phone. She lives locked in that room with no contact with anyone. I cut off all her friends. No one comes to visit. She is completely isolated. She is the perfect victim." Perfect victim. Those words echoed in my head like a gunshot. "Besides," Vanessa continued, voice full of venom, "I already got almost $200,000 out of her. A few more months and I'll clean out the rest. When she realizes, if she realizes, it'll all be in my account. And then, what's she gonna do? Sue her own son? Never." The connection ended. Vanessa turned to go back inside. I stood there, frozen, phone in hand, recording saved. 200,000. She had stolen 200,000, more than I had calculated. But now I had the confession. In her voice, clear, irrefutable. I went up to the room on shaky legs, locked the door from the inside. The only thing Vanessa still allowed me to do. I sat on the bed and cried. But I didn't cry from sadness. I cried from rage, from indignation, from a fury so deep it seemed to burn from the inside out. Because now I had everything. Documents, photos, spreadsheets, recordings. And in 8 days, Henry would return from Paris. 8 days for Vanessa's castle of lies to crumble. 8 days for her to discover that the perfect victim was actually much smarter than she ever imagined. And when that doorbell rang, when Henry walked through the door with his leather briefcase and his ruthless lawyer eyes, Vanessa was going to learn a lesson she would never, ever forget. 3:37 p.m. I know because I looked at the microwave clock in the laundry room when I heard the sound. A sound that would change everything. The doorbell. My heart raced. Henry had sent me a text message an hour earlier, a short, objective message. Arriving at 3:30, Do not reply to this message. I stayed in the room, sitting on the edge of the thin mattress, waiting. My palms were sweating. 8 days of preparation. 8 days reviewing every document, every photo, every recording, everything stored in a manila envelope I hid inside the torn lining of the mattress. I heard hurried footsteps, high heels on the wooden floor. Vanessa going to answer. I took a deep breath, stood up, smoothed my dress, a beige, faded dress that had been nice 5 years ago, passed a hand through my hair. I wanted to be presentable. I wanted Henry to see exactly what I had become. His voice echoed through the house. "Vanessa, what a pleasure to see you." Tone polite, cordial. But I had known Henry for 40 years. I knew every nuance of that voice. And that right there was the voice he used in courtrooms. Controlled. Dangerous. "Henry!" Her voice was animated, surprisingly cheerful. "What a surprise! I didn't know you were back in the States." "Got back yesterday. Came straight from O'Hare. I missed Evelyn. Where is she?" Brief silence. Then, "Oh, she must be resting. You know how it is. Age. She sleeps a lot during the day." Lie. I was awake. I was always awake. I walked out of the room slowly. The hallway was narrow, dimly lit. I passed the laundry, the pantry, until I reached the living room. And I saw. Henry was impeccable. Charcoal gray suit, Italian cut, probably an $8,000 suit. Navy blue tie with discreet stripes. Gray hair combed back. Caramel leather briefcase in hand, one of those executive ones with gold clasps. He was 71, but he looked 10 years younger. Erect posture, sharp gaze. The posture of someone who spent his entire life in boardrooms, commanding audiences. Vanessa was in my Victorian chair. Tight black dress, neckline showing more than it hid. Hair loose, cascading over her shoulders. Red nails, freshly done. Probably $300 at the salon. She was smiling, that fake smile I had learned to recognize. Kyle was on the sofa, phone in hand. When he saw Henry, he went slightly pale. He knew who Henry was. He knew he had been his father's best friend. He knew Henry wasn't a man to make social calls without a reason. "Evelyn," Henry came to me. He held my hands. His were warm, firm. Mine were trembling. He looked into my eyes, and in that look, I saw everything. I saw that he had understood my silent desperation in the calls, that he had come prepared, that he wasn't leaving without resolving this. "How are you?" His voice came out low, intimate, the voice of a friend of 4 decades. I'm fine," I lied, but my eyes told the truth, and Henry read every unspoken word. He looked around, saw the stained Persian rug, saw my wedding portrait turned to the wall, saw the new decor Vanessa had installed. Too modern, too cold, no soul. Then he looked at me again, at the faded dress, at the gray, badly cut hair, at the dark circles under my eyes. "Evelyn," he said, his voice still controlled but with growing tension. "Where is your room? I want to see how you're settled." Vanessa jumped up. "Oh, Henry, don't be silly. Do you want some coffee? I just made orange cake." I want to see her room. It wasn't a request. It was an order. Vanessa hesitated. For 3 seconds, I counted mentally. She hesitated. Then she forced a laugh. Of course, but it's simple, you know. We're still renovating the house, so she's in a temporary room." "Temporary?" Henry's voice cut like a razor. "For how long?" No one answered. "Evelyn, show me." I walked forward. I felt everyone's eyes on my back. I crossed the living room, the hallway, past the kitchen. With every step, my trampled dignity screamed for justice. I opened the door to the room. Henry entered. He stood in the middle of that tiny space, 6 by 9 feet. Mattress on the floor, thin as paper. A cardboard box serving as a nightstand. The broken lamp flickering. My clothes piled in boxes along the wall. The smell of mold, dense, suffocating. The tiny window that barely let light in. The wall with dark moisture stains. the service bathroom next door with the broken flush that made noise all night. I saw Henry's jaw clench. I saw his hands ball into fists at his sides. I saw the vein in his temple pulse. He turned slowly, walked back to the living room. I followed him, heart racing. Vanessa was standing, arms crossed, trying to look confident. But there was something in her eyes now, a flicker of nervousness. "Henry," she began, voice still sweet. "I know it looks bad, but—" "Looks bad," he repeated. The voice was low, dangerously low. "You put a 68-year-old woman, the owner of this house, in a maid's room with mold on the wall?" "It's temporary," Vanessa insisted. "We're renovating." "Renovating? I saw the master suite when I passed the hallway. It's impeccable, renovated, expensive. And Evelyn is sleeping next to the laundry room." He looked at Kyle. "Did you know about this?" Kyle lowered his eyes. It's temporary. Vanessa what?" Henry's voice rose for the first time. "Vanessa told you to stuff your mother in a hole?" The silence was absolute. And then Vanessa made the fatal mistake. She smiled, that disdainful, superior smile, and said the words that sealed her fate. "Henry, with all due respect, you're exaggerating. This house is mine now. Kyle is my husband, and we decide what's best. And the old woman?" She paused, looking at me with pure contempt. "Old women need to understand their place and shut up." The air left the room. Henry stood there just looking at her. And then, very slowly, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who just watched prey make a mortal error. He opened his leather briefcase, took out 3 documents, and said, voice calm as still water before a storm, "Vanessa, there are a few things you need to know, and I think the next 10 minutes are going to be very educational." And in that moment, watching Henry open the first page, seeing the panic start to crack Vanessa's mask of confidence, I knew the war was over, and I had won. Henry placed the 3 documents on the coffee table, that glass table Vanessa had bought with my money, $6,000 at a boutique in the Gold Coast. He didn't rush. Every movement was calculated, deliberate. Like a maestro conducting a symphony, he knew exactly when each note should sound. "Before we start," he said, voice professional, "I need you to know there are 2 witnesses outside, a process server and a court reporter. I'm going to ask them to come in now." He opened the front door. 2 people entered, a man in a dark suit holding a folder, the process server, a woman in her 40s, square glasses, tablet in hand, the stenographer. "Good afternoon," said the official. "We are here as official witnesses to this proceeding." Vanessa went white. All that confidence, that air of superiority, began to crack like fine porcelain being crushed. "Witnesses for what?" she asked. Her voice came out thin, high-pitched. "What is happening?" "What is happening," Henry replied, picking up the first document, "is that Mrs. Evelyn Miller, here present, granted me power of attorney exactly 17 days ago. A power of attorney with specific and irrevocable powers for a term of 5 years to represent all her legal, financial, and property interests." He showed the document, notarized letterhead, seals, signatures. "That's a lie," Vanessa exploded. "She didn't do that. She doesn't even know what a power of attorney is." Henry looked at her with that irritating calm of a winner. "You're right on one point, Vanessa. Evelyn is very intelligent. So intelligent that she managed to send me, even while being watched, dozens of documents, photos, bank statements, recordings," he paused, "including a very interesting recording of a conversation between you and your mother. Do you want me to play it here, in front of everyone?" Dead silence. Vanessa's face went from white to red. Her hands were shaking. Kyle stood up from the sofa. "Mom, what is this story about power of attorney? Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at my son, and for the first time in months, my voice came out firm, strong, the voice of the woman I was before being broken. "Because you chose to believe her instead of me, Kyle. Because when I told you money was disappearing, you called me confused. Because when I showed you I was sleeping in a hole, you said it was temporary. You didn't deserve to know." He opened his mouth, closed it. He had no answer. Henry continued. Document number 2. He unfolded a sheet with tables, numbers, colored highlighters. Forensic handwriting analysis. I hired one of the best experts in the state. He analyzed 14 checks issued from Mrs. Evelyn's account in the last 6 months. Total, $83,600. He pointed to the enlarged signatures on the sheet. All these signatures are forged. The slant is wrong. The pen pressure is different. The loops of the letters don't match. Evelyn never signed these checks. "But she gave me authorization," Vanessa stammered. "She asked me to sign because she had arthritis." "Arthritis?" Henry arched an eyebrow. "Interesting, because Mrs. Evelyn's medical records, which are also here, show no debilitating arthritis. In fact, she is in perfect cognitive and physical health for her age." He picked up the third document, and this one was thick, stapled, official. Police report number 4C728-2024, filed yesterday at the Division Specializing in Crimes Against the Elderly. Mrs. Vanessa Tavares is being formally charged with aggravated embezzlement, forgery, fraud, and false imprisonment. Vanessa stammered, literally stammered, holding on to the wall. "False imprisonment," she repeated, voice strangled. "That's crazy. She lives here. She's free." "Free?" Henry turned on her like a lion. "You changed the locks, and she needs to ask permission to leave. You isolated her from all her friends. You trapped her in an inhumane room. You controlled her every move. That, Vanessa, is false imprisonment, and it is a crime." He opened the briefcase again, started pulling out more papers. Bank statement showing unauthorized transfers totaling $186,400. Screenshots of antique sales on specialized sites. All pieces belong to Evelyn. All sold by you. Receipts for purchases made with a credit card fraudulently opened in her name. Every paper he placed on the table was a condemnation, irrefutable proof. And the cherry on top? Henry picked up his phone, connected it to a portable speaker he pulled from the briefcase. A recording. He pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the room. "The old hag doesn't suspect a thing, completely manipulated. As soon as she dies, this house is worth over $1.5 million. Kyle does whatever I want. She is the perfect victim." The recording continued. Every poisonous word, every plan revealed, every demonstration of cruelty and greed. When it finished, the silence was sepulchral. Kyle was pale as paper. He looked at Vanessa, then at me, then at the floor. "Vanessa," his voice came out hoarse, "tell me this isn't true. Tell me it's a lie." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and then she did the only thing manipulators do when cornered. She tried to become the victim. "Kyle, honey, you don't understand. I did all this for us. Your mother was sick. I was trying to protect our future." "Protect?" His voice exploded. "You stole from my mother. You put her in a maid's room. You used me." He sank into the sofa, head in his hands. Henry looked at the process server, nodded. The official picked up his phone, dialed, spoke quietly. "You can come in," confirmed. He turned to Henry. "What's going to happen now?" He looked at me, and for the first time, he smiled, a genuine, proud smile. "Now, Evelyn, you get your life back. And he looked at Vanessa with absolute contempt, "she's going to learn that stealing from the elderly has very, very serious consequences." The doorbell rang. 2 police officers were at the door, and Vanessa finally understood that the game was over. And she had lost everything. The 2 officers entered the living room as if they were part of a choreography Henry had rehearsed perfectly. A female officer, short, hair in a tight bun, professional expression. A male officer, tall, broad shoulders, handcuffs hanging from his belt. "Mrs. Vanessa Tavares?" the female officer asked. Vanessa was backed against the wall, breathing fast. Her eyes darted from side to side, looking for an exit that didn't exist. I have the right to a lawyer," she managed to say. "Of course you do," the officer replied, voice neutral. "You can call him from the station. For now, I need you to come with us. You are being taken in for questioning regarding charges of aggravated fraud, embezzlement, and forgery." "This is ridiculous. I didn't do anything." Vanessa tried to sound indignant, but her voice came out strangled, desperate. Kyle, do something. Tell them this is a lie." My son was sitting on the sofa, head down, hands shaking. He looked up. I saw tears there. For the first time, I think he was really seeing who Vanessa was. "Vanessa," his voice cracked. You really did this? You stole from my mother?" "I didn't steal. I was managing her money for our own good, for our family." "Our family?" Kyle jumped up. "You put my mother to sleep in a laundry room. You sold her things. You made me believe she was sick." Vanessa's mask finally fell, and what appeared beneath was pure poison. "Oh, yes. And do you think it was hard to manipulate you, Kyle?" She spat the words. "All I had to do was cry twice and say your mother was confused, and you believed everything. You're weak. You always have been." The slap she gave him, not physically, but emotionally, was brutal. I saw my son recoil as if he'd been punched. "Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to come with us," said the officer, stepping forward. Vanessa tried to run, literally tried to bolt down the hallway. But the officer was faster, grabbed her arm with professional firmness. "Don't resist. It will be worse for you." "Let me go, you incompetence. You don't know who I am." The handcuffs made a metallic click around her wrists. And in that sound, so final, so definitive, something inside me broke. Not from sadness, from relief. 45 years of dignity, 6 months of hell, all summed up in that click. As they led Vanessa out, she screamed that it was unfair, that I was a crazy old woman, that Henry had manipulated me, that this wasn't over. The neighborhood had come out to watch. Mrs. Martha from number 23 with her dog, Mr. Peter, who lived on the corner, always so polite, the young family from number 19 with the 2 little girls. Everyone watched Vanessa being put into the cruiser, handcuffed, screaming like a lunatic. And I felt shame, not for myself, but for having let it get to this point, for having allowed my life to become this public spectacle. Henry put a hand on my shoulder. "Breathe, Evelyn. It's over." But it wasn't over. There was still a lot ahead. When the cruisers left, sirens off, but with Vanessa's humiliation complete in broad daylight, Kyle turned to me. "Mom," his voice broke. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I looked at him. My son, my only son, the one I carried, raised, loved unconditionally for 36 years. "You didn't want to know, Kyle. It's different." "But she deceived me. She tricked you because you let her." I cut him off. My voice was firm now, firm and tired. "How many times did I tell you money was missing? How many times did I complain about the room? How many times did you see me thin, sad, faded, and chose to believe her instead of me?" He didn't answer, because there was no answer. Henry opened the briefcase again. "Kyle, you weren't arrested today. But you should know you've also been subpoenaed. The police are going to investigate if you knew or actively participated in these crimes. For now, you are considered a witness, but depending on what they find, you could become an accomplice." Kyle paled even more. I didn't know. I swear I thought she was taking care of Mom." "Then you were incompetent," Henry replied. Brutal. Because any son who actually cares would have noticed his own mother was sleeping in a hole. The process server approached with more documents. "Mr. Henry, the injunction was granted. Mrs. Evelyn has exclusive possession of the residence as of this moment. Mr. Kyle has 72 hours to remove his personal belongings." "What?" Kyle looked from one to the other. "You're kicking me out?" "This house belongs to your mother," Henry explained. "Only her. And after everything that happened, she has the legal right to decide who lives here. And she decided you need to leave." Kyle looked at me, red eyes, face destroyed. "Mom, you're kicking me out? I'm your son. And here, in this moment, I needed to do the hardest thing a mother can do. You are my son, I agreed, but you were also complicit in my suffering. And I need time, Kyle. I need space. I need this house back. I need me back. But I have nowhere to go. You have a salary of $12,000 a month as a project manager, Henry replied. You can rent an apartment. You can figure it out. Your mother figured it out her whole life. Now it's your turn. The court reporter began doing a quick inventory of the house, photographing rooms, listing items. Henry explained it was to document everything, every piece of furniture, every object, to prove what had been stolen or sold. And it was during this inventory that they discovered more. In the room Vanessa and Kyle occupied, my old suite, inside the renovated closet, there were boxes. Boxes with jewelry, clothes with tags still hanging, designer bags, imported shoes, all bought in the last 6 months. The reporter noted it down. Approximate estimate, $60,000 in clothes and accessories. $60,000 of my money, while I wore faded dresses. They also found documents, contracts Vanessa had forged, trying to put the house in her name and Kyle's. Printed conversations with realtors about selling the mother-in-law's property when she died. Spreadsheets, yes, spreadsheets, where she calculated how much she could still steal before I found out or died. It was that calculated, that coldly planned. It wasn't an impulse. It wasn't a mistake. It was premeditated crime. When the sun began to set, the house was finally empty. Kyle had left, not without trying to hug me first, which I refused. The official and the reporter left with stacks of documents. It was just me and Henry. He made tea in my own kitchen with my own kettle and sat me at the table, my mahogany table. It's over, Evelyn. But there was still one last revelation, one that would change everything I thought I knew about Arthur, about Henry, and about how I had never truly been alone. Henry placed the teacup in front of me. Chamomile with honey, exactly how Arthur used to make it when I had a hard day. Do you remember? I asked, voice hoarse from holding back tears. I remember everything about you two, he replied, sitting in the chair next to me. 42 years of friendship don't just fade away. He took a sip of his own tea, sat in silence for a moment, just looking out the kitchen window. Outside, Arthur's orchids swayed in the late afternoon wind. Evelyn, he finally said, there is something I need to give you. I should have given it sooner, but I thought the right moment would be after everything was over. He opened the leather briefcase one last time. From a side compartment, he took out an envelope. Cream paper, heavy, high quality. It was sealed with red wax, the kind Arthur used for important documents. My name was written on the front. His handwriting, that slanted, elegant, unmistakable script. My hand trembled when I took the envelope. When? My voice failed. When did he give you this? 2 months before he died. He called me into his office, said he needed to talk about something important, very important. Henry paused, eyes shining with memories. He was different that day, more serious, heavy. When he closed the door, he said to me, Henry, I need you to promise me something. If one day Evelyn needs help, really needs it, not just simple help, you will be there. You will protect her from anything, anyone. I clutched the envelope to my chest. I could feel the weight of it, the weight of words Arthur wrote knowing he would never see me read them. Did he give you money too? I asked, remembering what Henry had mentioned earlier. $150,000, said it was for legal costs, if necessary, to ensure you were never helpless, even if it meant suing people you love. $150,000. Arthur had saved that, planned that, foreseen that. Did he know? My voice came out in a whisper. Did he know about Vanessa? Not about Vanessa specifically, but he suspected Kyle, suspected the influence the wrong people could have on him. Arthur loved your son, Evelyn, but he knew his weaknesses. That hurt. It hurt because it was true. With trembling fingers, I broke the wax seal. I opened the envelope. Inside, 3 handwritten pages, Arthur's handwriting filling every line with care. I started reading, and I had to stop at the first sentence because the tears began to fall. "Read it out loud," Henry asked gently. He would want me to hear it too. I took a deep breath, wiped my eyes, and read. "My dearest Evelyn, if you are reading this, it means I have already departed. It means you are alone in a way you never imagined you would be. And it probably means something went wrong. Very wrong. I know you, my love. 42 years of marriage taught me every detail of who you are, your strength, your kindness, but also your difficulty in setting boundaries when it comes to people you love. That is why I leave this letter with Henry, because I know if you reached the point of needing him, it is because you tried to solve it alone and couldn't. It is because you were probably hurt, used, made to feel small, and I cannot allow that. Even dead, I cannot allow anyone to destroy the woman who built a life with me. I suspect Kyle. I know this is hard to read. I know you will want to defend our son. But I saw things, Evelyn. I saw how easily influenced he is, how he seeks approval in the wrong places, how he can be manipulated by people who know exactly which buttons to push. I am not saying he is bad. I am saying he is weak. And weak people, when they marry the wrong people, make terrible choices. That is why I left Henry as your guardian. He has powers to act if you need. He has resources. He has my full support and trust. Do not hesitate to use that protection. Do not have pity. Do not feel guilt. You deserve dignity. You deserve respect. You deserve to live the years you have left in peace. In the house we built, surrounded by good memories, not pain. If Kyle disappointed you, forgive him eventually, but not before he learns, not before he understands what he did. Forgiveness without consequence teaches nothing. And about the house, never, never let anyone take it from you. Every stone was placed with our sweat. Every piece of furniture was chosen with our taste. Those orchids in the garden were planted with my own hands, thinking of seeing you water them for years after I was gone. Keep watering them, my love. Keep living in this house. Keep being the strong Evelyn I met at 24, who stood up to me when I was wrong, who built a company with me, who never bowed her head to anyone. Henry will take care of you. Trust him as I trusted him all my life. And if you are reading this crying, which I know you are, know that I love you. I always loved you. From the day I saw you at that graduation party, in the green dress, laughing in that way that lit up the whole room, you were my greatest success, my best choice, my safe harbor. Now be that for yourself. With all my love, yesterday, today, and always, Arthur. I finished reading and couldn't hold it back. I broke down. 42 years of love summed up in 3 pages. A man who, even knowing he was going to die, thought to protect me, who foresaw my suffering and tried to prevent it. Henry placed his hand over mine. He didn't say anything, just stayed there. I cried for Arthur, for the life we had, for the life he didn't see. I cried for myself, for the hell I went through. I cried for Kyle, for the son he could have been and wasn't. But amidst the tears, something else emerged. Gratitude. Because Arthur was right. He was always right. And even after death, through Henry, through that letter, through the plan he built, Arthur was still protecting me. I was never alone. Never. He came to me on a Saturday morning, Henry said quietly. 2 weeks after that conversation in the office, he brought all those documents, detailed instructions, contacts, strategies. He put together a complete plan should you ever need to legally defend yourself from anyone. Did he know he was going to die? I don't know, but he knew he needed to prepare a shield for you, even if you never knew it existed. I clutched the letter to my chest again. I could almost feel Arthur there. The smell of his aftershave, his calm way of solving problems, his quiet laugh when I told bad jokes. Thank you, I said to Henry, for keeping the promise. I would do it again 1,000 times, he replied. You two were my family when I had no one. When my wife died, who took me in? You and Arthur. When I almost quit law, who gave me strength? You and Arthur. He pointed to the documents scattered on the table. This was the least I could do. We sat there, in the kitchen Arthur and I renovated together 15 years ago, drinking tea as the sun set completely. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt at home, truly at home. But there was still a road ahead. Recovery wasn't just about legal justice. It was about rebuilding, relearning how to live, and deciding what to do with the shards of a mother-son relationship that had been shattered. 3 months later, I sat on the porch of the house, my house, with a cup of coffee and the morning paper. May had arrived with that delicious warmth of Chicago spring, the kind of morning where the sky is blue without a single cloud. Arthur's orchids were blooming, purple, white, yellow. I watered them every day, as he asked in the letter, and every time I saw a new flower open, I felt he was there, somehow, smiling. Vanessa's sentence had come out last week. 4 years and 3 months in prison. Conviction for aggravated fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. The judge had been harsh. During the hearing, she looked at Vanessa and said something that stuck in my memory. Crimes against the elderly demonstrate a particular cruelty. You didn't just steal money. You stole dignity, peace, security. You stole from the person you should have protected. Vanessa would have to pay back $220,400, everything she had diverted, with interest and inflation adjustment, plus $50,000 in punitive damages. Since she didn't have that money, her assets were seized. The designer clothes, the jewelry, all sold at judicial auction. Even so, it wasn't enough to cover the whole debt. The rest she will pay in installments for the rest of her life. Poetic justice? Maybe. But it didn't bring me the joy I imagined. It only brought closure. Because revenge doesn't heal. Justice doesn't erase 6 months of humiliation. What heals is rebuilding. And that's what I did. The first thing was retrieving what Vanessa had sold. Henry hired a private investigator who tracked down every item. My mother's sapphire brooch? It was at a jeweler in Lincoln Park. I bought it back for $32,000, $4,000 more than Vanessa received. The Chinese porcelain. We found 14 of the 18 pieces in different antique shops. The other 4 never appeared, probably sold to private collectors. Every object that returned home was like recovering a piece of myself. I renovated the back room. Not to live in. I would never step foot in there to sleep again. I turned it into a library. I put in the mahogany shelves that were in storage, the reading chair Arthur used, the bronze lamp he got from his father. I hung our photos on the walls, our graduation, our wedding, trips we took, baby Kyle, because yes, Kyle still existed in my story. I couldn't erase my son, even if I wanted to. He called me every week. At first, I didn't answer. Then I started answering, but kept my distance. Short, objective conversations? I'm fine, Kyle. And you? Nothing deep, nothing intimate. He had divorced Vanessa 2 weeks after the arrest, rented a small apartment in Rogers Park, started therapy. He told me this in one of the calls, voice choked. I need to understand how I let this happen, Mom, how I was so blind. I wanted to forgive him. Part of me wanted to very much. But true forgiveness isn't instant. It's not something you give because it's the right thing. It's something that grows slowly, like Arthur's orchids. It needs time, care, proof that the person has changed. Last month, Kyle showed up at the door, unannounced, with a box in his hands. Mom, I'm sorry. I found this in the storage of the apartment I rented. Vanessa hid it. It's yours. Inside the box were the 4 missing porcelain vases, the ones we never found. She had hidden them, probably to sell later. Kyle handed over the box and stood there in the doorway without asking to come in. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said. I know I was a terrible son. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to prove I can be better, even if you never forgive me completely. I took the box, looked at my son, 36 years old, red eyes from crying, thin. He had lost about 20 pounds since it all happened. Come in, I said. Let's have coffee." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start. Nowadays, he comes to lunch here every Sunday. We get takeout. Neither of us has the energy to cook big meals yet. We eat, we talk about work, about nonsense, never about Vanessa, never about those 6 months. It still hurts. It's going to hurt for a long time. But we're trying. I started seeing my friends again. Martha comes here twice a week for us to play bridge. Henry has lunch with me every Friday. It became a tradition. I joined a support group for elder abuse survivors. I help other people who went through what I went through. I tell my story. I show that it is possible to rebuild. The house became mine again. I went back to sleeping in the master suite, but before that, I renovated everything again. I removed what Vanessa put in, brought the antique furniture back, put the bed where Arthur and I slept for decades back in place. Sometimes at night, I still miss him, his warmth next to me, his breathing in the silence. But I also learned to like my own company. I discovered that solitude and loneliness are different things. Loneliness is empty. Solitude is full of yourself. I am 68 years old. Statistically, I can still live another 15, 20 years, and these years will be mine. No one will take them from me. No one will put me in a room. No one will make me feel invisible. Because I am not invisible. I am Evelyn Miller, retired accountant, widow, mother, survivor. And if there is one thing I learned in these 3 months, it is that dignity is not something they give you. It is something you claim, that you fight to keep, that you protect with tooth and nail. I look at the orchids swaying in the wind, at the cloudless blue sky, at the steaming cup of coffee in my hand, and I smile. Because today, finally, I went back to being myself. This story is a work of fiction, but the pain it describes is real for thousands of people. Elder abuse is often silent and committed by those closest to us. If you recognize these signs in your life or in the life of someone you love, isolation, missing money, sudden changes in living arrangements, speak up. Dignity has no expiration date, and it's never too late to reclaim your life. Check on your elderly neighbors. Look them in the eye. You might be the only lifeline they have.